In Bangladesh, we are witnessing elections that are going to happen after quite some time. But in the last 1.5 years of the Yunus regime, we've seen immense violence, attacks on minorities, on opposition politicians, and any liberal voice. But what is the future of Bangladesh? Joining us right now is world-renowned author, most prominent Bangladeshi writer, Taslima Nasrin. Ms. Nasrin, thank you very much for joining us here on NDTV. I want to begin by asking you about the state of Bangladesh. You've been writing regularly on social media. But in the last 1.5 years, since Yunus has been there as the chief advisor, how have you seen your Bangladesh erupt?
It is a new Bangladesh. I don't know that Bangladesh, Jihadis are in power, I should say. Islamic fundamentalists brought Yunus to power. And there are almost everyday mob violence and attacks on minorities, attacks on the opposition party members and the supporters also. And we have seen how the sculptures or statues of freedom fighters were destroyed. And there was no action against the criminals. They walk free, and the journalists are imprisoned, and they didn't commit any crime, and they are still in the prisons. And also the opposition party members are in prison, and they haven't committed any crime still. And there is no action against the jihadis and fundamentalists. The newspaper offices were, demolished, and Chayanot and Udichi, the cultural organizations, their offices were, burned to ashes. And hardly any action was taken against the criminals because they are fundamentalists, and fundamentalists support Yunus regime, and it's going on. So if the fair elections happened, maybe the BNP would come to power, and then the democracy will be restored, I think. Otherwise, if Jamaat-e-Islami comes to power, and then they will implement Sharia law, and then women and minority people would not have any rights. And, they will use democracy to establish theocracy.
I want to come on that. You spoke about how Yunus is trying to claim that these are free and fair elections. But increasingly we see that the radicals, especially the Jamaat, fundamentalists, are gaining more ground. They obviously do not have any women contesting the elections. And even in the BNP, they have a little bit of a tilt towards a radical mindset. So do you really feel that democracy in true spirit after these elections can come back to Bangladesh?
I don't think so. BNP was, before BNP was with Jamaat, ideologically, I don't think there are much differences between them, because they both use Islam to stay in power. Hasina also did the same thing. So Hasina created so many mosques and madrasas, and Hasina made madrasa degrees equivalent to university degrees. By doing this, she destroyed the education system of Bangladesh. And those people who use those mosques and madrasas, who I think that kind of factories of jihadis, those jihadis and fundamentalists actually protested against Hasina. Right. So it was like a Frankenstein moment. But anyway, so what I'm saying that that we hoped that Tariq Zia will do something good, probably, in this kind of situation when Yunus and his supporters were destroying the country at that time, when Hasina was not allowed to come back to the country, or, I have not much hope about Hasina, but maybe some other young leaders who could change the situation of the country. But many are not allowed to, come back to the country, and the Awami League supporters were actually, many of them are killed, many of them had to leave the country. But anyway, so we have no other party that we could have some hope. So, but I was very disappointed when Tariq Zia came to Bangladesh a few months ago, and then he declared that he would govern the country on the basis of Prophet Muhammad's ideas, so which is theocracy. So he should, we hoped that he would separate religion from state, which is very important for Bangladesh, because in Bangladesh, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, Christians all live together. So secularization is must. We must have secularization. Secularization of state, secularization of education system, and secularization of society. But if he wants to follow the ideology of Prophet Muhammad, then there will be no rights for women, no rights for non-Muslims. It will be a disaster. So I hope that he will change his mind. He lived in a civilized country for 17 years. I hope that he learned how to rule the country, and then he will strictly separate religion and state, and he will secularize the education system. The country already the education system is destroyed, and then he will restore the 1972 constitutions, that we had secularism, Bengali nationalism, and we had socialism. And I think that 1972's constitution will be restored.
Let me also ask you, you spoke about the fundamentalists who've been attacking. You have also spoke about the future of Bangladesh. But in the last 1.5 years, we've seen constant attacks on the minorities. We've seen a lot of Hindus, particularly in the villages, who've been lynched, who've been killed. Recently, Deepu Chandra Das, he was lynched, his body was hung on a tree, and he was beaten, and this was done live on a Facebook video. Why do you think that there is this long rope given to such radicals to kill the minorities, particularly Hindus? And why do you think that Muhammad Yunus has completely failed to take any action or give any kind of a resolution or some kind of security to the Hindu minorities?
Yunus are in the power because of the Islamic fundamentalists. So that I think that he doesn't want to take any action against the Islamic fundamentalists and jihadis, because with their support he is in the power and he wants to stay in the power. Actually, some people are saying maybe Yunus will destroy this election because Yunus wants to stay in power. If BNP wins the election, then he has to leave the country, or he has to leave the the position that he is having now. He will not have this position, that kind of prime minister's positions, or main advisors, chief advisors post. Anyway, what I think that Yunus is not taking any action against them because with their support he stays in the power, and Yunus is against a liberation war. He wants wanted to erase the history of liberation war. He's supporting the people who were the collaborators of Pakistani army, who killed 3 million Bengali people and who raped 200,000 women. And he is against India, and he is saying that, and that he, Bangladesh got the independence in 1947, and the second independence they got in 2024. So 1971 liberation war was erased, and he created a museum, which is July Museum, that in 2024 who fought against Hasina regime are the heroes for him, So Hindus, the violence against Hindus is nothing new in Bangladesh. So no political party actually gave security to minority Hindus. Recently, a year ago actually, that Chinmoy Krishna Das is imprisoned. It's a prolonged imprisonment. For what? He was accused of raising saffron flag above Bangladesh flag. Actually, it is not true. He did not raise saffron flag. It was not his work. And also he was accused of murdering a man, and it is also false, because he was in the custody at that time when the man was murdered. So actually, the Yunus regime is against Chinmoy Krishna Das because he gave the Hindu people courage to fight against injustice. He gave the voice to Hindu community and asked them not to be silent and to protest against all kinds of injustice and not to leave their ancestral land, which actually made the Muslim fundamentalists and Yunus very angry. So that Chinmoy Krishna Das is in prison and Hindus are not united because he strengthened Hindus to be united. So they want Hindus to be silent and isolated. And it is happening.
Let me also take you back to 2024 that you spoke about, Sheikh Hasina. And I know you have no love for Sheikh Hasina or Khaleda Zia, but in this particular case, when you saw those visuals of a helicopter going there and, taking Sheikh Hasina, and she was brought to India, just like you had to run away from your homeland. It's been 31 years. Now, Sheikh Hasina is stranded in New Delhi, probably not far from, where you are. But what were your thoughts that Sheikh Hasina is stranded now in exile away from homeland and perhaps can never return?
Yeah. She will not be able to return. I hope that she would return and she would participate in the politics, and she would, if she wants to go back to her country, she should have the right to go back to her country, like I should have the right to go back to my country if I want to. No. But, when I see her, I feel sad. Even though she banned my book, my girlhood, the book got Ananda Award, she banned that book. And also she prevented me from going back to my country. Now she would understand what exile is, how to, it's very painful. I have no ground beneath my feet. I think that if the people who never lived in exile would never understand the pain of being in exile. So I think that it was she should understand the other people's pain, that who are in exile, because she didn't mind to preventing me from going back to my country. Now, I hope that she would understand my pain also. But anyway, so I think that that Awami League should have the right to participate, in that election, even though this election is not very legal election, but something should be done now. Supreme Court's more than 700 Supreme Court advocates few days ago they wanted to reject this. They wanted people to reject this election. I think that then Yunus would be, Yunus would be what Yunus wanted to stay in power. Then he and his supporters, that Islamic fundamentalists and Jihadis, will be very happy. They probably do not want any election because they want to live like this. They are doing whatever they want. They killed whoever they want to kill. They put people in prison, whoever they wanted to do. And Yunus is very silent because he accepted all the this kind of destruction, because he doesn't love this country. If country is destroyed, he doesn't mind. He will be happy and he will leave the country because he lived in the Western countries, and and is a Nobel Prize winner. Everywhere he got the respects and honors. So he will have no problem, but he doesn't have any love for the people in Bangladesh. And but we want that there should be election. This democracy should be restored, and whoever wins the election. I do not want Jamaat-e-Islami party should win the election because it is a political party based on religion. I do not want any religion-based politics. And if country is secular, if separation of religion and state, which is separation of religion and state, is very, very important for a secular country. Yeah. In that secular country, no religion-based politics should exist. So Jamaat-e-Islami should be banned. Awami League or BNP and other parties should not be banned, which is not, those parties are not religion-based politics, political parties. So Jamaat-e-Islami should not win, but if BNP and other parties, left parties, win together, then I think that democracy, they should use democracy to bring Awami League to the country again, and whoever the party members, whoever are forced to stay outside the country should come back, and no political party should be banned. And freedom of expression, women's rights, minorities, the security, everything should be restored, and everything under any democratic government, elected government. I think that we can put pressure on the government that please save minority and give them security and save women's rights and freedom of expression. If freedom of expression is there, then all the atheist bloggers who are forced to live outside, they can go back to our country, and I can also go back to my country if there is a real democracy. And under real democracy there should be freedom of expression, women's rights, human rights, minority rights, everything should be there.
I want to ask you one last question, away from politics, away from elections. It's been 31 years out of your homeland. It's painful. There is so much agony, and there is a longing perhaps to return home. I personally can understand, because 10 years back I interviewed you, and 10 years later I'm coming here again to interview you. And I am from Kashmir, and I have lived in exile away from my homeland because of Islamist terrorism there. So let me ask you point blank, Taslima Nasrin, do you wish to go back to your homeland? And with the circumstances in the last 1.5 years, almost no democracy, lynchings happening, no democratic rights, political parties being banned, liberal voices being scuttled, cultural institutions being burnt, and the memory of the freedom struggle also being erased. Do you think it would be possible in future to return home?
I think it is possible if government wants me to return home. If government doesn't prevent me from going back to my own country, then it will be possible. If I need security, I think that security should be provided. And if any citizen is threatened, I think that it is government's duty to protect that citizens. So I hope, and it is very painful to live in exile for so long, but hope that the situation will be changed. If I cannot return to my country, at least that my country will have democracy and freedom of expression. Actually, if there is freedom of expression, I will be able to go back to my country. Because, why I cannot go back to my country? Because there is no freedom of expression. And that fatwa was issued against me, the fundamentalists put price on my head. It was possible because there was no freedom of expression. And the government didn't take any action against those people who wanted to kill me. Government took action against me, who actually did not commit any violence, who wrote books for women's rights and human rights. So I think that I will be very happy if I ever can go back to my country. But if not, I think India is a nice place to live. So I will live for the rest of my life in India.
Right. Thank you very much, Taslima Nasrin, for speaking exclusively to NDTV. That was prominent Bangladeshi author, world-renowned author Taslima Nasrin speaking to NDTV. Very important words ahead of the elections in Bangladesh, that there should be democracy, there should be freedom of expression restored, and the radicals and the fundamentalists should not get a free run. She says that it's been 31 years in exile, but she does hope that one day she returns home. Reporting from New Delhi, this is Aditya Kaul for NDTV.